Hey, I'm Pauline, and welcome back to Salmon 101. So, I was at the grocery store the other day, sitting in front of the seafood counter, and I caught myself doing something that I've done for years without really thinking about it. I automatically bolt for the salmon displayed on ice instead of any of the prepackaged options. And for the first time, I actually stopped and asked myself, why? I mean, it just felt right somehow, more trustworthy, I guess. Today, we're diving into the different ways that salmon shows up in your grocery store. You've probably noticed it's not always displayed the same, and well, there's definitely a reason for that. When you shop for salmon, you'll usually see three main setups: those open displays with ice beds and glass counters, the foam trays wrapped in plastic, and those newer vacuum sealed packages that have been showing up everywhere. Which one do you usually go for? And have you ever stopped to think about what those choices actually mean for the salmon that you're bringing home? Today, we're zeroing in on that first option: salmon displayed over the counter on ice. If you like seeing your fish before you buy it, well, you're not alone. Fish on ice behind glass is everywhere: grocery stores, fish markets. When you see salmon laid out like this, it looks pretty legit, right? Like, this is how fish is supposed to be sold. You pick your cut, they wrap it in that famous butcher paper. I've been doing this for years because you can actually see what you're getting: the texture, color, overall quality right there in front of you. But here's what I didn't think about until I started digging more into the salmon world. Let's talk about what actually works with this setup first, and then we will get into its potential drawbacks. The visual component here is huge. Fish on ice screams freshness, which matters when you're buying seafood, obviously. You can see the fish directly and not through plastic. You get a sense of texture, color, marbling, all the stuff that tells you about quality and flavor with that salmon. So that visibility matters if you're really trying to be picky about what you buy, but fair. Temperature-wise, this method does a pretty good job. The ice or refrigeration keeps it cold, ideally between 32 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and that range helps slow down bacteria and keeps the fish in decent shape while it's out in the open. There's also the benefit of variety. Depending on the store, you might find full fillets, smaller cuts, maybe even some specialty options. It really comes down to how that particular seafood counter is run, but there's often more flexibility than what you'll see in a pre-packed case. And then there's labeling. Some stores will include things like sustainability certifications or where the fish is from. That part isn't consistent across the board, but when it's there, it's helpful. It gives you a little more context behind what you're buying, which I always appreciate as a consumer. But unfortunately, when visiting many grocery stores in my area, not all of them have that information available. But here's where it gets tricky. You have zero clue how long that salmon has been sitting there. Could be today, could be 3 days ago. There's no date stamp like on packaged fish. You're just trusting that the store is rotating their stock properly. Then there's also the risk of cross contamination. If the store isn't keeping a tight handle on hygiene, how the fish is cut, handled, or how often the ice is changed, bacteria naturally becomes an issue. It's not always obvious from the outside, but it does happen, especially in busy, high traffic stores. Another factor to think about is spoilage and waste. Salmon on ice has maybe 2 days max before it starts going downhill. And once that happens, it's garbage. So there's this constant clock ticking, and if the store gets busy or staff aren't always on top of things, that ice melts, temperatures fluctuate, and your fresh fish isn't always actually fresh. The thing is space. These counters can also display so much that sometimes that means a limited selection. Sometimes it means your salmon is sitting too close to shellfish or other seafood that took a completely different path to get there. And that proximity increases cross contact risk, especially if the setup isn't managed well. And temperature control. Ice works when it's fresh, but it melts if it's not replaced regularly or refrigeration dips even slightly. That affects safety and shelf life. And you can't just tell this by looking. Now, don't get me wrong, some places run their seafood counters really well, but it's just so hard to tell from the outside as a customer, and that's how this curiosity sparked this research in the first place. Now, when I'm at the seafood counter, yes, of course, whether I like it or not, I'm paying attention to the ice, to the brightness of the fish. Sometimes I obnoxiously ask where the salmon came in. But hey, that's just me. I love to hear your thoughts on it. Next episode, we're talking about the next popular option when it comes to purchasing salmon. We'll be looking at salmon sold in those foam trays. You've definitely seen them stacked in the refrigerated section. They're easy to grab and ready to go. But what do those packs actually mean for quality, shelf life, and freshness? And how much can we really tell just from the label? That's coming up on the next Salmon 101. This episode is brought to you by MOWI, the Norwegian salmon brand. They're one of the largest producers of farmed Atlantic salmon in the world, dedicated to high-quality, responsibly sourced salmon. To learn more about their products, head to mowisalmon.us. I'm Pauline, thanks for listening in, and I'll see you next time.